Well, good morning, friends. It's Crystal here from Homemaking on the Homestead, and welcome to my channel. I know that by the time you watch this, Thanksgiving will be over, and at some point you're going to get tired of eating turkey and turkey leftovers, so maybe this cook with me video sharing my pork chop dinner will be just the ticket for something new and different. It was a cold day and I wanted something nice and homemade for dinner that night, and so I decided to pull out some pork chops. Now you can do the same recipe that you're about to see with like chicken if you wanted, but it is smothered pork chops, and I cooked some corn on the cob and Brussels sprouts and biscuits to go with this, and even made dessert. And it is all cooking from scratch, so no boxes, no mixes, no nothing. It is all cooking from scratch. I started out with 3 good-sized pork chops. I cooked this up in my Dutch oven, and if you don't have a Dutch oven, then this can also be done in a baking pan and put into the oven, especially if you're doing more than 3 pork chops, if you're cooking this for a larger number of people. It is just my husband and I, so 3 was just fine. I heated up my Dutch oven, added some oil to that, and threw in some sliced onions. I stirred those around so that they could soften up a bit, and then I added my pork chops to that. Now again, if you are doing this in a baking dish, then you could do all this part in a large frying pan on the stove top to get it going. I seasoned my pork chops with some basic seasonings, just salt, pepper, some Johnny seasoning salt, and some garlic. And I then let those brown, and I just kind of kept flipping them and turning them while they were browning, and moving the onions around a bit so that I could make sure everything got nicely browned. At this point, my pork chops were done cooking, and I wanted to kind of just deglaze the pan a little bit. So I took 2 cups, I had 2 cups of broth that we're going to use for this in total, but I just took out a half a cup of that, and I put that into the pan and kind of let it boil up a bit and scrape up the bottom just to get all those flavors. Now would be the time, if you were transferring this to a baking dish, to go ahead and put all of that into your baking dish. Now it was time to take the other 1.5 cups of chicken broth that I had, and I added 4 tablespoons of flour to that and mixed that really well with a fork to get rid of all the lumps. I poured that mixture right over on top of all that pork chop onion goodness. I covered it well, brought it to a boil, and turned down my heat. I knew that was going to be cooking for a while. In total, I think I cooked that for about 1.5 hours to make sure my pork chops were just tender and falling apart. My next step was to work on dessert, and I decided to make some lemon bars. Lemon bars are so easy to make, and they don't require a lot of ingredients, and they taste delicious. I started out by making my crust, which is just basically some butter, powdered sugar, flour, and a little bit of baking powder, I believe, and then you just kind of push that into a 9x9 pan. Once you have that in the pan, you pop that into the oven. I rinsed out my bowl that I was using so I could reuse it. I washed off my beaters, and I started working on the filling. With lemon bars, you need to have that filling ready and to be able to pour it onto the hot crust when it comes out of the oven. So I mixed all that together, which was just sugar and lemon juice. Like I said, this is a really basic recipe. Of course, it had the eggs in it, and I just set that aside at that point and waited for the crust to come out. Once the crust had come out of the oven, it was time to pour on that lemon filling topping and pop it back into the oven and let it finish cooking. In between all of that, I had started boiling some water for my corn on the cob. Now my corn on the cob is frozen. I buy it in the freezer section, and they come in little half cob type pieces there, and I just put that into some boiling water so that it could simmer and cook. And in no time at all, my lemon bars were out of the oven, and I set them aside to cool. You wait until they have cooled completely before you cut them into bars. Now I was going to work on my Brussels sprouts. So my Brussels sprouts were frozen. And here's a little trick to roasting frozen vegetables. If you just start adding your oil and everything right onto the frozen vegetables, I have found that they end up kind of mushy. So what I do is I lay them out in a tray and I pop them into the oven and let them cook for just a little while so that they can defrost and the moisture can kind of evaporate from them. I cooked them for about 20 minutes and pulled them out, and at that point I drizzled them with some oil and I salted them and put a little garlic, granulated garlic on the top. Garlic powder would work too. I just buy the granulated garlic from Costco. And I put them back into the oven to cook for probably another 20-25 minutes. And the last thing I wanted to make to add to this delicious dinner was some garlic cheese biscuits. I took my own baking mix, which I call My Quick, and I did a video on that, which I can link below, along with all the other recipes I'm sharing today, and used that. I followed a Bisquick recipe for their garlic cheese biscuits, but I cut it in half. Since it was just the two of us, I knew we didn't need, I think the recipe makes like 8 or 9 biscuits, and I knew we didn't need that many. So I just cut the recipe in half and made 4 of them. At that point, my lemon bars were ready to be cut into squares, and oh my gosh, they looked good, and I can say from now they tasted good too. And there you go. That was my delicious Sunday dinner, all cooked from scratch, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Alright friends, that is my Cook With Me's, a Sunday dinner. Like I said, all the recipes will be linked in the description box below. I hope you really enjoyed coming along with me as I cooked today. And that wraps up today's video, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.